Burgess and Boltons weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy Friday.
Yes, indeed. Happy Friday to you, and welcome everybody to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation. And this week, we're going to focus on London market claims. So we had the conference last Tuesday. So we're going to reflect on some of the outcomes from that. But as always, Ben, we'll start with the news. And I think for both pieces of news, I think we can play this.
Hey Ben, what's the word on the data stream?
Data. I haven't heard that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all data related, aren't they? With these reports about pricing trends and all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely. Key data, not something I normally want to talk about in the middle of a cycle or where we were a few years or months ago. Rates. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is because we've started to see some shifts in our data where we interview brokers. They're talking more about product quality, about making sure the terms are right, all that sort of thing. So the sort of sense of a shift, a sort of stall and then a shift into something new, which I think is a softer market cycle. And we've been in a harder market cycle. That is endorsed, I think, by conversations that we're having with lots of people. I was talking to a broker from a big three house yesterday saying it's just so easy to get quotes now. There are people rushing to get them. Talked to a head of underwriting on Tuesday saying that speed will be absolutely their watchword going forward to beat the competition. So definite mood change. Now, why is this happening? Well, because basically rates have flattened off. And so both Marsh, which we'll see in a second, and Aon are saying that you see the orange here says that's a kind of moderate. In other words, it's a sort of in between, rates are fairly flat, and then certain D&O and some of the cyberspace soft. Both Marsh and Aon say the same thing. Didn't look at WTW, but I bet that probably does say the same, as does Howden and others. So wherever you are in almost every part of the market, in every part of the world, most parts of the world, I think apart from EMEA, which is India and the Middle East, you have got this flattening trend now where basically insurance is getting cheaper. And you might think that's odd given we've had catastrophes and big claims and everything, but there's an abundance of capacity in the market at the moment. Reinsurance has got its highest ever amount of capital. And as you can see from the Marsh, the rates are going pretty flat. And so for 27 quarters, this is the first time that the global rate is flat. Interestingly, Marsh is quite neutral in what it says about this. Aon has a more interesting commentary saying that there is now much more intense competition driving rates down between insurers, particularly in spaces like cyber. Now, our data as well would endorse that competition is increasing. We're seeing other signs of this. So we're seeing a lot more investment going in, I suppose, into sort of what you might call broadly positioning or brand. So a lot more advertising is going up, brand. So organizations really saying we need to be marketing what we're doing now much more than before. And that's really made, actually more so, massively more so than we've ever seen before in the last 20 years. And I think part of the reason for that as well is that, which isn't included in these reports, but we talk about, is just how many players. If you take London now, we monitor 64 insurers, something like that. 64. And I suspect we had another 15 plus come in through, not just in Lloyd's, but in London market as well, in around about 2019 challengers brands. So, and the pie hasn't got that much bigger. So the competition for business now will be huge. And I think there's been a distortion because during the last few years, COVID, several of the big players remediated their business. So they weren't really, they were kind of out of the market in big swathes. Now they're back in. So it's a real perfect storm now for massive amounts of competition. I think for big capital calls, for business failures, potentially mergers, everything else you can imagine. But there are too many players for too little business, and there's a lot of capital. So watch this space.
It's really interesting, that, isn't it? Because you mentioned two things there. I think competition and also speed being kind of one of the key areas to compete on.
Yeah.
And that, when I think about that, and we're going to come on to talk about kind of technology and the way organizations are structured and work together, and some of the friction actually that's inherent within organizations, because you always think of an organization, everyone pulling in the same direction to achieve a common goal. And in these global huge companies, I mean, that's just really difficult.
Yeah, it is. And it's even difficult for some of the challengers who even a few years in, because everybody's in the same boat when it comes to the systems around the market and the way that data is dealt with. I mean, I think there are inherent issues around how insurance data is just managed full stop. I don't think that's really sorted. So it's not just a sort of software issue. I think it's, what do we need, what do we do, and what do we do with it when we get it is a bigger, wider issue. So, and here we go into a very competitive thing. So you and I have talked about this, and we've talked about it at conferences and round tables and with our clients, but it was a sort of, an interesting conversation without a sense of a burning platform. But now I reckon there's a real burning platform for this. This is, for some businesses, this is going to be existential, I think. And then if we get more claims on the legacy business as well, that's going to put a lot of businesses under pressure, because everybody's going to be fighting for the best business.
Yeah. So, and also not just the best business, but the best talent, the best technology, there's a whole number of areas of competition that you could point to that.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all looking for, I think we'll come on to it in a minute, but we've just done some work with the IACP, International Association of Claim Professionals, global piece, which claims were saying we need to reskill urgently. We need investment in that. We need technology and nothing necessarily surprising, but nearly everybody is saying that's what we've got to do in the next 2-3 years. You've got an aging workforce as well, which we've talked about and touched on, and so you've got I overused phrase perfect storm, but it definitely is a perfect storm, because the stuff we're going to talk about in a minute about underwriting is saying the same thing. So I think if you're a chief exec at the moment, you must be being kind of beleaguered by your workforce around where to invest and what to invest in at a time when there's going to be less margin. So those that fixed the roof when the sun was shining will be in a good place. Arguably, that could be some of the bigger ones with resources and depth.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the smaller ones who have done really well, but don't necessarily have the resilience to go through this type of.
So, as you say, it's one to watch, and we will watch it, won't we? Insights there from me.
We will.
We will watch it. There we go. Right, let's have a look at this. Hyper exponential.
Not hypertension.
Hypertension, as I read it. What is this? Yeah. It's in the foundations.
Hyper Exponential is a 90s electro band that now has got into doing reports on insurance. No, they're a very good pricing software company, I think. I don't know so much about them, but this is a really good report, research report. Cracks in the foundations. I think there's more than cracks reading this report, but this is about E&S pricing, so surplus lines as we know in the US. and talking about what are the issues really around pricing in particular, but it brings in another number of issues which are really important. And given what we have just said, this stuff, takes on a kind of more fundamental level is much more important, I think, and it's stuff that we've already known about. So what I want to focus on a couple of things. First of all, just look at this chart if you can see it. How much time is spent in terms of manual entry of data by underwriters on a typical day, in terms of regular reporting, an hour or 1 to 2 hours, 3 to, the average is pretty high on this stuff versus meetings. So most of it is just through regular reporting and rekeying. Rekeying there is pretty significant, as you can see. So completely pointless, task for very expensive people, which is what I've always said about this market. The cost is in people doing this stuff. Integrating third-party costs is quite big too. Manual data entry and rekeying. Whoa, I think there's a typo in the top. It's not 3 months to do this. It's 3 days. 3 hours. Sorry, more than 3 hours. 2 to 3 hours, and then it says 3 months. But anyway, that's fine. We can accept the odd typo. Anyway, that's what you're paying your people to do a lot of the time, is to rekey data and manual data entry. But what the report also says is very interesting. It says that there is a basic lack of confidence in the pricing systems that underwriters use, and that goes through this like a stick of rock. This report, it's like everything. The systems that they bought for pricing don't work, or they're not fit for purpose, they say. They take too long to integrate with legacy systems, etc., etc. So the fundamental thing that an underwriter needs to do, which is price a risk, this report is saying they're not confident to do that. Pretty scary, really. Pretty scary stuff. And then at the end of this report, it says how do you collaborate with other people? Now, the top of the tree is that they collaborate really well with the lawyers, apparently, for some inexplicable reason. And then at the bottom of that is the actuaries. So the pricing actuaries and the underwriters seem to be at loggerheads, according to this report, in terms of collaborating and working together, which is, you would think those two would be, and the report says this, those are the key people who need to work together. So even when you've got people working on pricing, that seems very clunky. But it may be because they haven't got the data. They're not really got the technologies to make it work. You see here, what are the main reasons technology needs improving? 43%, I think that is, saying it needs a lot of workarounds to make it usable. Technology is not integrated, too much manual input. Making changes takes too long. Current tech is difficult to audit, report from. Whoa, I mean, those 5 things are what's technology supposed to do for you. I mean, they're the reverse of what you want technology to do. They look like they're making the job more difficult. So, so there's a if this is right, and to be fair, we have to caveat this by this is a company that wants to sell software, I guess, and solutions, but still the numbers are difficult to argue with. There's sufficient in here to say, wow, our industry does not have a Scooby when it comes to pricing of risk at the moment, if the US is anything to go by.
So those things are really interesting, because I ran a round table on Tuesday that was looking at legacy systems and how you kind of modernize those legacy systems in a cost-effective way, firstly, but also in a way that doesn't just create or add another layer of complexity to an already very complex technology architecture. And this is, so it looks like from the findings here that's kind of backing it up, and there wasn't any kind of clear way forward. And the reasons were, one, it's very difficult right now with new technologies like AI and automation, things like that coming online. To make sure the investment decisions that you're making now are you're not gonna look back in them 3 years and go, oh, we made a massive error there because we didn't see this coming over. So there's a kind of little bit of a waiting game going on. And also the business case still doesn't quite stack up. You know, AI is still pretty expensive when you're starting to look at implementing it in an organization at a you know, even at a regional level, you know, UK. But if you're looking more internationally, it's pretty expensive when you compare it to kind of traditional ways of, you know, hiring developers or outsourcing to India or whatever it is. And even though the accuracy might be better, it's still a tough sell to say, well, you know, we might get this done in 2 months rather than 3 months, but you know, it's still quite a big price tag.
And there are inherent risks, aren't there, Jeremy, on this?
Exactly.
Because, you know, and I was talking to people at your conference about this, you know, that now the lawyers are starting to get more involved, not because lawyers need to get, but you actually kind of need it because there are, whenever there's liabilities, if you go anywhere upstream of just basic tasks, we'll come back to basic tasks, that is going to slow down because that is going to be organizations taking quite a long time to work out when we've got this right. Because, I mean, it's not quite flying aeroplanes, you know, where safety has to be number one. But if you build into AI some systemic error around your claims payments, your investment, you know, whatever it is, you know, people could be really damaged by this, and you would be in a business critical situation, I think. So while it's, you know, the cliche is, oh, you know, it's great in lots of ways, but we've got to watch the potential downsides of AI, which were originally talking about, losing jobs and people. But now it's really, what if it gets it wrong? And we've already built it into our workflow. And we don't notice, you know. It's in financial services, that is a known risk.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who works for a credit card company who has just, they've had to spend billions because there was an error in their system from 5 or 6 years ago where they were overcharging all these corporate credit card customers. I mean, it didn't matter to each customer, but it was found that they'd, you know, so those things happen. Everybody knows that. It was, you know, so AI is that fear factor, I think.
Yeah, indeed.
Back to one thing in that hyper exponential report. They're saying 90% of underwriters spend more than 2 hours a day rekeying data. And they quote, underwriters aren't data entry clerks, and a heavy administrative burden takes them away from the most value-added work, negotiation, relationship building, risk assessment, and strategic decision-making. So, you know, the underwriters, you know, the front of the business are saying, we really worry that we can't make the improvements that we're required to do. So there's a huge challenge, I think, now for these businesses in insurance to do this.
Yeah. Good. Right. Thank you, Exponential, for selling software and your hits from the 90s dance music scene.
Yeah, very good. Them and Apex Twin, they're really good.
Absolutely. What a lineup. What a lineup.
What a lineup.
Right, let's talk about London Market Claims, because we had the conference last week, very well attended. You were there, Ben, and you kindly did some vox pops of people who were there to get some insights from them. And now we're going to attempt to play this. The last time we did this, it failed on such a massive level. Yeah, I was even mildly embarrassed.
Managed expectations down now, so that's good.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just, you know, just assume this isn't going to work. You're going to see a blank screen, and then me and Ben will come back going, okay, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've read the instructions. I should now just press this button, and now we'll see some vox pops. Let's see if it works.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, so you're here. Good to see you too.
So here at London Claims again.
Again.
How many times have you been?
Not often enough, but as often as I can. But yeah, love it every year.
Yeah, I've been coming for 15 years now, so I kind of use. Now, what I wanted to ask is, what's your kind of? You've been coming a few times. What's your kind of key takeouts from this one? I know we're only halfway through, but what's your sense?
Great. I mean, it's very buoyant, very excitable.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people have expectations. There's a lot of change in the market, so I think from the mood out there, admittedly it's lunchtime.
Yes.
People are asking questions that years ago they wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Everyone's apprehensive about change and AI and relationships, but actually what excites me most is people are talking about people for the very first time.
Yes. I think that's
Mainly they haven't, so you know, in a way they're stealing my thunder because I was going to do the same thing, but now I may not.
It's better when
but
you do it.
I love it.
No, I mean, I think that's
But no,
great. I
seriously,
get that
I think
too.
it's
I think
fantastic, yeah.
we're talking about people. We're talking about not the processy stuff which we used to talk about.
No.
And I feel it's opening up a lot. I just feel it's
I agree,
much more
but
positive.
it is about the people, and the technology is just an enabler. It's not the answer to all our problems, unfortunately, and we're always going to need people. So
Absolutely,
you know,
and that's
getting
key at the
people-
moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. But the mood's great, really excited, and
Brilliant.
you know,
Great to see you,
bring
Rob.
on the rest of the day.
Smashing.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the conference. See you
I
soon.
shall look forward to it.
Hi Zara.
Hiya.
So welcome to TIN London Claims 24. Just doing a look at Vox Pop. I can't remember. This isn't your first.
It's not, no.
London
no,
Claims, is it?
No.
No.
I've been a few times. I've been in my role at Liberty and also back in the day when I was back in legal.
Oh,
So,
right.
yeah.
Okay. Right. So, what's your takeouts from today so far? We've just done a session with Scott, his whole career and innovation, all that stuff.
I mean, the main thing and the key theme coming through for me is just the evolving role of the claims handler and how it has moved away from just being sort of back office, technical, to one that is a bit more strategic, adding value, and that we've still got quite a way to go, and there's still so much more that claims could be adding, and it's great having like-minded people in a room sort of driving that forward. So it's been really interesting.
That's such a good point. I think that this year, for the first time, you kind of really feel there's potential. You know, someone said the
Absolutely.
word creative this morning, and I think creativity is what really makes business a success. And I feel that this year. Whereas before, I've always felt it was a bit processy and saying, you know,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that's getting pushed.
Real energy, I think, to start doing things differently. It has got a very different feel this time around.
Definitely. So you feel it's kind of upbeat and
Yeah, in a positive place. I think claims has really got some value to add in the insurance market,
Absolutely.
and we're being taken seriously.
We've been
which is
saying that for
great.
years, haven't
Yeah,
we? Why do they not
absolutely.
catch up? Now
I
they're
know,
catching
right?
up eventually. Brilliant. We'll have a great conference.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
Thanks. Lovely to see you.
Cheers.
Take care.
Hi Laura. Welcome
Ben.
to TIN Claims, London Claims Conference 2024. You've been before?
No, I haven't. It's my first time.
Oh, right, okay. So what's your kind of sense of it? What's your take out?
I think it's great. I think it's really positive. I think it's fantastic how the insurance industry are, enthusiastic about new technology, new AI, new data, all different processes. I think we're at an early stage, but I think there's clear progression on its way.
Yeah, and it's your first one, I know, but what's your sense of the mood today with people here? You know, they're
Really
up, down?
positive. No, I think
Okay.
they are completely up. I think people are keen to gain knowledge, new ideas, and it's great because it's a real chance for the industry to get together and share ideas and new ideas on technology.
Brilliant. That's right. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
You too.
See you
Thanks, Ben.
soon. Take care.
You disconnected for some reason, but anyway, we're back. That was almost tech problem free, but there we go. I'm really grateful for you doing those interviews, Ben, because I always talk and saying it is a lively event, and you can feel the energy in the room, and just from those short vignettes that you did, I mean, you can just tell the energy is. You can feel it there, and it was really good.
Yeah, there's quite a few more, so we'll put them up on social media. Embarrass people, but no, everybody was really buoyant and good, and very, very, very positive.
Yeah. So let's just pick up on some of the themes. So we're not going to cover the whole day because there's far too much ground to cover. But if we just think about and reflect on kind of the opening session, which kind of set the tone for the rest of the day, and some of the things that I found really interesting, and it also reflects what those interviewees were talking about as well. So I think there was an absolute focus on purpose and customer or client surface in all of the sessions. And what was not really refreshing, but quite surprising, is that people did not just jump to technology, AI, process straight away. That, of course, that was part of the conversation, especially in those sessions. But in this opening session, the tone was very much, we have to keep hold of the purpose. We have to keep hold of the customer, put them front of center, and avoid kind of looking at kind of processes and, I don't want to say navel gazing, but they are, just said it, but that type of thing, which quite often in the past, say like 10 years ago, at the conference, that quite often happened. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, I think it's a rebalancing. I mean, I get nervous, I think, as probably Rob Powell suggested when we're just talking about process and technology, because if you think about it, it's people who set all this up. People set companies up. People set up, an intention to make a profit and do business and be successful. And you may not be the original entrepreneur, but when you're part of that, you can do amazing things. And that's not an exaggeration. It is, what people can do and are able to do in business. Now, we've already said at the beginning of the show that this was a really challenging period, but it ain't going to be solved by silver bullet technology. Technology working will help, but ultimately we've got to work out ways in which we work better, more collaboratively, more effectively with data. We've got to free up that time. That's really about what I think John Muir was talking about kind of evolution. And so I'd come round back to the fact that I think the conversations, as people were saying there, were around people and what could work, what we could do basically better.
And I think just kind of building on that, there was quite a lot of discussion around kind of a leadership and managing change. I think because in all the sessions there was a sense that claims was at a point where they could deliver real transformations that would improve client service, but that doesn't just happen. It needs a vision. It needs that purpose to be communicated around teams. It then needs to have a proper plan and leadership to drive it through. And I thought what was really good on all the panels throughout the course of the day was those claims directors and leaders, really got that, and it felt like they were also getting it from their boards as well. The tier above, whatever the structure is. So I thought that was really good. And
I agree. I mean, I think that there is a mindset or a change in the conversation, which is about genuinely that customer focus. Now, does that come from claims? I don't think it just comes from claims. I think it's coming from competition, the competitive nature of the market. I think brokers are pushing it. I think it's becoming evident to, any kind of sentient person in these organizations that part of our job is actually to deliver something of value to the customer. And I think the sad thing about having to do too much admin in a day is that you're losing time to be able to do that. But you're also going to have to think that, almost like you're in a small business, we've got to make this happen. And if it isn't technology, then it's us, and if technology helps, then so be it. That's great. But we won't hold our breath, if you like, on that. And I feel that often, and I say this often when I'm talking to clients, you're too ready to wait for the perfect day when the technology's giving you everything just at your fingertips and almost doing the job for you. That's never going to happen. It's never going to come. It's always going to be a bit of a struggle. But the reward is that you do something nice for somebody and they say, thanks very much, that was great. That's, whether that be internal, external, that's the job and you get paid for it, right? So it's getting a bit of that spirit. And I think we had some of that last week.
Definitely. And then just talking about the tech, because technology was mentioned. I think AI was obviously talked about quite a lot, and kind of innovation as well. And I think there was a recognition that innovation in claims had been slow. There were opportunities to, as we've already talked about, reduce that kind of manual rekeying, and those kind of drudgery tasks that are in all organizations, but we've been slow in the uptake on some of those. So I think there's a real sense that now's the time to get that investment and start to change those practices. And just coming back to that point again, it's about improving the customer client experience, whether it's an end user client, a broker, an internal customer, whatever it is. That has to be the ultimate goal.
Yes, and I think we've talked about this ad nauseum, really, but I think if we can get to focus on what the customers actually need, and I go back to this conversation I had with the head of underwriting who talked about speed. It was a very clear, a very clear target for that business to be quicker than the competition and to deliver to the customer ultimately, but the brokers in between. That was imperative, for their success, and that's good, because I think it is a need. They're playing to a need. Then instead of, can we get better data, do this? It's more difficult on pricing, where you don't know whether the price was right until sometime later when the claim happens. But we'll not delve into that one now, because that's a bit of a longer conversation. But still, I think that's what's happening. I think that's what competition does. It makes you focus and make choices, around your strategy. Decide what you're not doing and decide what you are doing.
Yeah.
I think, by the way, this will be difficult for technology companies in some ways, because I think they will be held to account much more. I think they'll be asked, where are you going to add value, and what are you going to do for our business, and how are you going to represent our brand, and how are you going to make us more successful? Not, can you save us some cost?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And it's about building relationships that are much more about collaboration rather than just buy a product. And we talked about this a lot. It's not about buying a software product or whatever. It's about forming collaborative partnerships and building capabilities in your business to meet your strategic goals as an organization. That is the absolute sweet spot. So yes, I agree with you. I think the questions will be asked there. Interesting. What else anything else that you took away from the conference this year?
The panel I was on was good, I thought, and I think Julia Graham made some very good points about claims being a strategic asset for the business, not just a process or whatever, and how important it was for clients to see who was good at claims service. That's what she was talking about too. So I think I took out that there's got to be more information, I think, for the clients ultimately, and that's kind of what I do in my business. But it is important. I think we have had a lack of that, generally speaking.
Yeah,
and the customer wants to know what they're buying and make choices, and they might pay more, you see, and that's why it's important, not just because they're measuring things.
Yeah,
they'll pay more for better service. And in fact, someone came back to me after that and said, would you ask that question, Ben, on your surveys, and ask AMIC if they will do the same around, would you be prepared to pay more and how much more? So it's interesting that was followed through. And I think the other thing was mentioned was about Lloyd's, I think, and the fifth hurdle, which Gabby talked about from Canopus, and that I think is, kind of interesting potentially, that there is a push on the whole market to do better in terms of Lloyd's. Again, it's another signal that it's becoming more important.
Yeah. Good. Right. Thank you for that, Ben, and those reflections. So, final piece of news, massive news. We don't normally bring up the Daily Mail, but it makes me feel a bit queasy. But anyway, Thomas Tuchel, appointed, outrage as the England manager.
It's a disgrace.
Yeah.
Where do you sit on it, Jez?
Well, I listened to Five Live's Monday Night Club, and the correspondent on there, his name's just got in my head, reporter for the New York Times, very, very funny guy, was saying that the rules should be changed so that actually, just like you can't have foreign players in your England squad, you can't have foreign managers in your managing your England team. And I was going, that's perfectly reasonable. And his argument was that if you're not producing a pipeline of managers that are capable of managing at this level, then the whole thing is broken, really, and this might be a way of addressing it. However, as the rules stand, you can appoint whoever the hell you want, and it seems to me he's a very good manager and probably a very good fit for the job. Last night I caught an interview again on the radio, getting the sense of what do the Germans feel about us appointing a German manager, and they put it very politely, saying, "Oh yes, they were very proud that you English feel you need
recognizing our managerial prowess as a nation."
Yeah, indeed, and I think it was tongue in cheek, thinking, "Ha ha ha, look at you lot over there." So yeah, there you go. What do you think? Are you Daily Mail?
Well, I'm of the view that we haven't won anything for so long, and while now there is a sort of saint building thing around Gareth Southgate as to what a brilliant manager he was, there was lots of issues potentially there around whether he would really take it all the way, and he didn't. And so the contrast now, which I do think I have to say I think is slightly jarring to have a German manager for the England football team, simply because of the cultural message that sends. I mean, one of the fun things has been the banter between England and Germany over the the kind of war references and the football. I mean, it's humorous and it's light-hearted generally, but it's part of the it's part of the sort of fabric of what the conversations are. So that changes it now with Tuchel going in, and that is a bit odd. I mean, I'm not, and I don't really. We can all say he's a great manager, a good manager, and we all hope that at the beginning. And if he wins the World Cup, nobody's going to care whether he's German or Polynesian, quite frankly. He would be a hero, and there'll be a kind of he'll be a kind of anti-hero of the German that got England. I don't think the Germans then would be being so polite and proud if we beat them in the final.
Yeah.
So, quite frankly, if he gets that team, when I watch football, particularly England, what frustrates me most is how we can't quite close the deal. And I think that's probably true of most people who watch England. And I think if any manager can come in and make them close the deal, that would be brilliant. I'd love to watch that.
I would love to watch an England-Germany final now. And just watch his face.
Well, maybe Germany will get an England manager.
Yeah, that's it. Sam Allardyce. Yeah, that's it. Part of the bus.
That's it. It's a global world. I mean, it's a tough. I mean, I in the end, I don't really massively care. We've had foreign managers before.
Yeah.
We've had Sven and we've had Fabio, couldn't even speak English very well. So I don't think this is necessarily anything new.
I don't think so either. I think it's just because of the rivalry that there's been between the two teams for that amount of time.
And I think it's maybe slightly the older generation that feels this more than the younger generation. I don't think they'll be so bothered. I haven't asked my kids yet. I will discuss it with them at the weekend probably. But I should imagine they don't really have that same feeling of the mail on night, the dark day for England.
Dark day for England.
We are. What did they say? We are the laughing stock of the world now.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think all the press conferences are going to be done in German. I think they're still going to keep English as the primary.
I mean, the funny thing about this article is that we may have made an exception for the mighty Pep Guardiola. So that's fine. So we'll have one foreigner who we like, but we won't have another foreigner who's German and we don't like. You know, we have a gun now. We have a gun for hire who owes us nothing and will pass through our game with a huge check and no connection to the fans or players. Well, that's a huge, major assumption. I don't imagine that he wants to be unsuccessful.
No.
Anyway, we will see, won't we?
We will. We will indeed. Good. All right. Yeah. Just before we move on, Data Jam, a month away. Yeah, looking forward to that. If anyone wants to come along and they're still listening to the show at this point after we've had the Daily Mail on, you can use this code and get a half price ticket. So there we are. Bit of promotion for me. So
very good, the Data Jam.
Yeah, I think it will be good. Anyway, we'll talk about that closer to the time. What are you doing this weekend, Ben?
I don't actually know. We've got some visitors, my wife's friends, so I've got to make myself a bit scarce, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. Ben,
Beautiful weather. I will maybe go for some walks in the countryside.
Yeah. There we are. Okay. Yeah, as I say, I don't know what I'm doing apart from running people around for various football matches. You know, that type of thing. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
Good. Right. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you next week and have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Burgess and Boltons Weekly Wrap Up.